Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Mike Veda, Dean of the Dale Bumpers College of Agricultural Food and Life Sciences, and I'm both honored to represent our faculty, students, and staff, and particularly to welcome you all to our Dale and Betty Bumpers Distinguished Lecture Series. Appreciate you all being here, and I hope you enjoy our presentation by Ms. Jo Luck. This program is generously sponsored by the Tyson Family Foundation and the Tyson Food Foundation, and we are very grateful to them for providing this funding to recognize the careers of both Senator and Mrs. Bumpers and to highlight the issues that were central in their careers and also are the central tenets of the Bumpers College here at the University of Arkansas. And those are the economic and social prominence of the agricultural and food industries of Arkansas to the state, the nation, and the world, the necessary responsibility to promote environmental sustainability and practices that advance human quality of life, particularly with regard to child wellness and healthy behavioral eating patterns. I want to recognize and thank our partners here, the Dean of the J. William Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Todd Shields, and his faculty and staff and students for participating with us today. I also want to recognize Chancellor Dave Gearhart and his inspired leadership. I say this with full honor that his leadership has promoted us to think of ourselves as the University of Arkansas and collaborate enthusiastically and broadly across disciplinary and college boundaries. Exemplified by this program today in partnership with the Fulbright College and also through our honors and international programs where we participate broadly across the university. Following today's presentation, we'll have an open question and answer period, and that will be moderated by one of our star students, Maggie Jo Pruitt, who will be moderating that question and answer period. Maggie Jo is majoring in agricultural education and communications technology, and she currently chairs the Bumpers College Honors Student Board. She was selected as moderator after being named the John W. White Outstanding Student of the Bumpers College for 2014. Now, Senator and Mrs. Bumpers had attended these presentations in past years and send their deep regrets that they are not able to participate today. But we do have an introduction from Senator Bumpers to introduce today's lecture series. So I thank you all for being here, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Hello, I'm Dale Bumpers. Let me thank you for attending today's event. This is the highlight of the year for the College of Agricultural, Food, and Life Sciences. It's always a treat to welcome folks to Fayetteville to show off our beautiful state and campus. Today's lecture is a chance for the people in the college and the University of Arkansas to hear from key decision makers, not only in the businesses of foods, but also in national and international policy. It also exposes our students to the real world.
Meeting the challenges of feeding an expected global population of nearly 10 billion by 2050 requires that our students be trained on campus as well as abroad in cutting-edge technologies and food systems that are more efficient, equitable, and sustainable, particularly given the land and water constraints that this future generation will encounter.
This can be achieved through many avenues, including policy review, developing culturally appropriate solutions to food insecurity, access to gardening, horticulture, or agricultural knowledge, access to dietary knowledge, food literacy information, including how to interpret food nutritional labels, retail solutions to food deserts that meet the needs of the community as well as the economy. But most of all, we must work together to achieve this important outcome.
Solutions to these challenges require multidisciplinary approaches. The Bumpers College is participating with other University of Arkansas colleges and schools, such as the Fulbright and Walton Colleges and the School of Law, to address fundamental issues of food justice, food and agricultural law, infrastructural, logistical, and sustainable development.
My hope is that every person in this room will also tackle many of the issues facing Arkansas and the nation. We'll all be the beneficiaries. Thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for your support of the Bumpers College and the University of Arkansas.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Todd Shields, and I'm the Dean of the J. William Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences, and we are excited to be here today, the part of this lecture series. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today our speaker, Dr. Jo Luck, and drawing attention to the fight against world hunger and against poverty, and support for sustainable practices. This year's speaker is currently a consultant on global food security issues, and she fights for empowerment of smallholder farmers in developing countries. She is the former president and CEO of Heifer International, which under her guidance grew from a $7 million budget to more than a $130 million budget. Dr. Luck, I'd like any advice you have on that. She served Heifer International for 22 years, was a World Food Prize laureate in 2010. She's a member of the DuPont Advisory Committee on Agricultural Innovation and Productivity for the 21st Century. She is chair of the Program Oversight Panel for Aquatic Agricultural Systems for the World Fish Center in Malaysia. The list goes on and on. I could continue reviewing her accomplishments the rest of the day, but it's time to hear her presentation. From hunger to hope to human dignity is not complicated. But feeding 9.6 billion people by 2050 is very complicated. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jo Luck.
Very nice.
Good afternoon. It's just wonderful to be here. And I bring you greetings from your global neighbors. If you wish to respond to me, you're welcome to. Konnichiwa. Excellent. I love it. Jumbo. Namaskar. Sawadika. Ni hao. Salamat pagi. Indonesian. Indonesian, we'll work on that one. Hola, como está usted? And hi, y'all. So I just want you to know, we come from everywhere, and that's just a few of your brothers and sisters around the world sending their greetings as well. You know, it doesn't matter what your career path or your personal life choices are, because you, whether you're going to move to the other side of the world, the other side of the country, or the other side of town, will live out your life on a global stage. No matter where you are and who you are, you now are a global citizen. And I know from meeting so many of you, you already know that. But we still have others that we need to help understand that what we do here, our decisions, our actions impact others all around this world, because we share one village called Earth. And we need to think about it that way, and think about our actions and what we do and our decisions. And I've even become obsessed with little bitty things that I've learned over the years that make a difference, like don't leave that water running while you brush your teeth. Just think of the water that's running through there, and it's going to be like gold very soon for all of us wanting that wonderful, clean, fresh water. And I want to start by saying that 25 years ago, I had an amazing opportunity open up to me when I was recruited for a job at Heifer International, which was totally not the field I had prepared for. Although everything you're doing every day is preparing you for the future, whether you realize it or not, whether it's formal training or not. And so keep that in mind, that from the training in early childhood education, even teaching first grade before there was public kindergarten, and 40 in the classroom, boy, you do that, you just do about anything later. Being a CEO of an international organization was nothing after that, or being a parent, because I had people to help. And, but you use those skills wherever you're going to go and whatever you do today. But that meant the last quarter of a century of my life, I have focused all my passion, skills, time, and effort on ending hunger. And I've learned so much. My first position was head of international program at Heifer, which meant I worked directly with the people around the world, and I would go out and immerse myself in their lives and their villages and sit on the ground with them and eat what they ate and learn to be there and be their guest and do what they were doing so I'd understand them. And that was probably the best education I could have ever had to prepare me for the invitation of the board that later asked me 3 years later to the day to be the CEO and president. That had not been my plan. I think it's an important job, but I really wanted to focus on international program. However, you need to go where your skills are needed, and they did need me there. They had experts in animal agriculture, they had veterinarians, they had all the kind of things I've heard from you and your different studies and your professions, and they didn't really need that. They needed their, more than a cheerleader, but someone to pull them together and get the resources they needed, as you referred to, and give them, let them know how important their mission is, and it's the greatest thing, and we want people to know about it. And you also have to be practical, and I want to keep the heart in everything I do, because I don't think you can do it well without that, but you run it like a business. So I really ran it like an international business with the heart piece in there. And my leadership style was so different. It's one reason I aged so fast. I use participatory decision making. And if you want to get exhausted, that's what you do, because everybody has an opinion. But I take time to listen to it and share it, and we hear it and sometimes debate it. And doing that with people from at least 38 to 40 countries is quite interesting. And then when we make that decision, it is our decision. They may not have gotten each one what they wanted, but they were heard, and they know that. So we own it. It's not Jo Luck's decision. It's not so-and-so's decision. It's ours. And also, it's more sustainable that way, because you really try not to miss any of those little ideas and possibilities that could go wrong later and you wish you'd thought about in advance. And so what I want to do today, I've spent a lot of time with you yesterday. Dr. Rom gave me the greatest schedule, and I was glad we worked in the restroom breaks a couple of times, because we were just so busy. And I appreciated that, because I learned from you and what you're interested in and what you care about. And everybody said, share the stories at the lecture. You know, I have statistics, I have information, you know, I want to talk about something, but I am going to focus on those stories, because I hope you all have a chance for a first-hand experience someday in some way or another, but if not, I want to share with you the things that really impacted me greater probably than any other events. And I heard that from some who have had an experience internationally or meeting someone from there or so forth. So that's what I will do. But before I do that, I want to tell you I've learned so much from these smallholder farmers, international colleagues, members, staff around the world, that I wanted to take. And we talk about passing on the gift at Heifer, because you receive an animal, which is a living loan, and you have to meet all the requirements before it gets there. We don't just back up and unload animals. You know, you have to know how to train it, care for it, build the housing, plant the fodder, you have to do equity training, you know, you have to do all kinds of technical training to be prepared to care for that animal in the right way. And I always require local leadership. They elect leaders, they make the decisions. It's not our work, it's their life. We bring in the possibilities and the basic resources and give guidance, evaluation, training, whatever is part of the plan, but it's got to be theirs. And everyone thinks they want a cow in the beginning, but in the high Alps, you probably do better with an alpaca or something that would be more appropriate, maybe even a guinea pig, up in the high mountains where you have this much space to raise your protein, maybe camels, maybe llamas. We have 22 species now, and mainly if they're cattle, they're dairy cattle. But I don't know about water buffalo. For a good old gal that lived on the farm for a little while, but just a short while, I learned a whole lot in a hurry from all the experts. But the animal is the catalyst. It's what the people do with their lives and take charge. And people will thank me. Well, don't thank me. I had the blessing to do this work, and I actually get paid for it, which almost makes me feel guilty because it's so fantastic. But it's those who take charge that make the difference. They are the ones that we applaud, and the donors who make it possible. Without them, we know it could not happen, and I know we all appreciate that dearly. And as far as fundraising, I'll say quickly, many boards did invite me to come for fundraising purposes afterwards, and when I left Heifer, and I did some, but mostly I wanted to carry on this work I'll mention in a second. They said, how did you raise that kind of money? I was elected chair of the interaction board of all my peers, which is 180 NGOs based in the United States and working around the world. So if you're interested in the NGO community, look at Interaction, the umbrella there, and Sam Worthington, who heads it up. And I was elected the president of that board, and it's every NGO you would ever think of in the world, and they all said no one has grown like Heifer. And the reputation and the credibility and the impact. And so I said, you know what? I didn't go out to fundraise. I didn't go out to improve this or prove that or tell them. I went out to say, guess what I've seen? The transformation from a modest gift and I don't want you to miss out on that. You've got to experience it. Just take a study tour. Once they've seen it, you never have to say anything more except, yeah, I'll call you back. I'm glad you're excited. Keep on working with this. It's theirs then. They get so excited. And that's what you want to do, in some way bring it to them, whether you bring the people from the other country to talk to them or get them involved in some way. So that's, you already know, of course, that's how you get the resources, the people seeing the difference it makes and wanting to be a part of that in every way they can. So the biggest challenge that we face, here I spent 25 years, and at least in 15 years in, I began to say, I know how we're going to end hunger. I understand how this works. We have enough food on this planet. It's how do we get it to the people that need it? How do we distribute it? How do we do this and that? And then suddenly I realized the biggest challenge is ahead of us, in my opinion, in the next 50 years, I hope not longer, because that's enough to try to do this, is how are we going to feed the people in our village called Earth if we have 9.6 billion living here by 2050? And we better know something by 2030 and 2035, and we may have a good handle on that. But you know better than I and many others, how do we do that when we have dwindling natural resources? We have water shortage issues. We have got climate change that I want to tell you is beginning to frighten me when I see the possibilities and hear some of the newest reports about what could happen. We have to prepare for that the best way we can. And the growing gap between what some say the haves and have-nots, the growing gap is frightening around the world, and we're realizing that is going to create that political and social tension that's going to affect so many things we do and whether we're working together or not. And I won't go into this now, but we have got to break down some barriers that are going to harm us if we can't do that. And I think you're going to really know what I'm talking about. And I wish all of my audiences had at least 50% of the people that know what I'm saying without dividing them emotionally and polarizing their thinking. And that is about research, GMOs. I hope someone doesn't blow up the room that's opposed to that. But I've learned that's one of the most volatile things in the world. And you know why? they don't quite understand it. They're smart, dedicated, caring people. In most instances, they really are. But they don't understand. They hear that and it means something different. I always talk about in a room, a meeting, a discussion, you say a word or a phrase, and if you could see the bubble, you know, like in the cartoons when people are thinking something over everyone's head, it would be a different picture of what they saw in that word or that term. And sometimes I would even say, what is the picture in the bubble over your head now? And they'd tell me that, someone else. So we have got to come together on that. And I get so frustrated, and others do, and I'm not taking sides with either one, but the Republicans, the Democrats, when they're not talking to each other and they're not working together, you know, I just want to shake them. Well, so when I'm on campuses and some of the NGO communities and things say, why are you on a DuPont committee? And I said, because I'm learning from them and I'm wanting to bring my friends and neighbors in the NGO community together with them, find the same core values, find the same common interests, the same goals, take some research lessons, how you're going to do better in the field with those who need it. I don't mean start marching in trying to sell fertilizer and seeds the first day. They're not there yet. And I tell DuPont, don't go in with a business plan yet. Go in with an empowerment plan. I want you to sit on the ground and talk to them and immerse yourself. You know, I'm sure they're rolling their eye. I said, you know what? That may sound kind of silly, but you invest the right time, you don't have to go back and redo it. You get their trust. You're not the foreigner. You're not there to take you. Go to camp together, room together, get to know each other, all those little things in life. It changes the relationship. So listen and trust what their needs are, and then tell them what you could bring that could help and let them want that. And I said, it will be gold, and those that figured it out will actually end up making more money in the long run. I know in China, when I went there, I think it was, Ambassador Sasser at the time, who they're friends with the Bumpers, and I'd asked Betty Bumpers to go with me to evaluate some of the women's work in the projects, and Mary Sasser joined us and so forth. And when I went to the embassy, and some gentleman came in, and the attaché d'agriculture, you know, these fabulous titles, and he said, are you the woman here giving out cows? He probably didn't have that kind of accent, but anyway, that's what he said. And I said, well, if you mean I'm from Heifer International, and we're empowering those in this country to be able to have the right livestock and skills and resources for growing them, yes, my name is Jo Luck. And he said, well, don't you know we're over here trying to create a market for our cattle in the United States? And I said, well, then you ought to take me to dinner. I'm one of your best friends. And he looked a little funny, and I didn't want to give him too much time to think about that. So I said, because the people with whom we're working could be your very best customers in the future. And you ought to get to know some of them now so they remember you when they become successful people. So we've got to look, you know, you can't beat them to death. Try not to insult them. I know it's been kind of hard, some of the cultures. But being the woman CEO and VIP, I can get away with some things, you know. And I try to do it with great grace and dignity and respect. Otherwise, I'd probably set us back several years. So anyway, more than production and greater food to feed the people in the future. And I love it because Jim Burrell and others at DuPont have learned, they may go home and kick the wall or something, but they've learned to be really gracious about my remarks and I think enjoy it from time to time. And I was talking to him and I said, first of all, you got to watch your language in some of these powerful things. You can't be talking about extended shelf life to everybody. Then they're going, that's where they put that stuff in my food. You know, I don't want to eat that one. There's a certain audience for certain things. And when you're talking about labeling, don't send someone out there to beat them over the head like they're so dumb if they don't realize why that's an issue or not an issue or whatever. I said, in fact, a couple of those guys that are getting big bucks from you that came in and gave their pitch to us, I think I'd lobby against you if I heard them speak. So let's kind of turn around and think what others are hearing and how they're perceiving it, if I can help you with that. And of course, they're masters, like many of them, at what they do. But there are those little moments and things that we can all learn from each other and do better, and I admire them. because they are supporting 4-H in East Africa. They're talking about smallholder farmers. They're talking about empowering women and the importance. And it's not just rhetoric. I'm seeing things behind it. So if I make this much difference from them and learn this much from them that I can take back, and I've asked them to pull together NGOs and others in conversation, and they're doing that, and they're hosting that. And of course, working with universities is critical, learning, getting research together. We have got the other thing I feel so important about, and that I think is a big, it's kind of an obstacle in this challenge, is the science that is so brilliant. And I work with some of the people I'm working with right now in this World Fish Center. I'm the only one from North America, and the only one that's, not an underground sea diver in the Antarctica to study the whatever or know the whatever from Scott and South Africa and Philippines, all over the world. You ought to hear our accents in a meeting. That's fun. But they are teaching me so much, and I am actually being paid by them to teach them how to walk in the shoes of those in the villages so that their work that's so valuable can be applicable at the grassroots. I don't mean make books and things that are always readable by them, but when you talk about agricultural communications and how to tell others about these things, how to get that across, that is big, and that is so important. And they're working on that, and we go in the villages in Zambia and Bangladesh, and I was in Sri Lanka recently, and I'm in Malaysia a lot working with the office team there. So take those things you learn, and how can I address it? How can I work with others and be respectful? And they're going to invite you in. So now I want to come back to my 25-year journey and share with you a few things that I was asked yesterday if I would focus on, and I'm honored to do whatever would be interesting for you. And they may go snippety-snap because I don't have a great deal of time, and I want it to be fun and interesting for you, but I think it will make points just as well as if I were to give a real academic lecture on it. I met a young girl named Beatrice, and some of you may know her story and some may not. She was about 9 years old in a village in Uganda, and when I went there, we were looking at how our project work might work in that village. And of course, I have the best experts, so I don't really have to be the expert, just be there and see it and listen to them and work side by side with them. And I noticed that she had a little red dress on, and the little collar was here and the back was cut out of it. And I said, well, you know what, is that a custom or what? No, that's because it's the only dress she has, and she can grow and wear a little bit longer when we cut the back out. And she was carrying heavy wood or baskets of produce or what on her little head, and she'd always peek in the little window of the schoolhouse. And I said, she must love school. And they said, oh, she can't afford to go to school, because you have to buy all your books and things. It's not free in where she lives. And so we delivered, her mother received a goat, and then she had the offspring goat, passed it on, which paid back her living loan to another person or family that had prepared. And then the milk was sold, and Beatrice got the money to go to school. And she was so excited, and she did so well that she'd do 2 grades and 3 grades, and most of them I meet and work with are a lot smarter than I am, and so I'm really, really impressed by them. And the photographer, Dick Young, who did a lot of work with the United Nations in the Year of the Child, is a great video photographer, and he was there to capture some of the stories for Heifer International, and he fell in love with her, and he actually ended up paying for her secondary education in the city nearby. And then they wrote a book about Beatrice. If you ever seen Beatrice's Goat, which is a child's book, but it's a lot more than a child's book. It tells you in a very nice, pleasant way the impact of a small gift and investment in people and what can happen. And it's through a livestock gift, but of course that means using the manure and the means and the way to learn to grow the seeds and plant the hydrogen-fixing trees and terrace the hillsides that are slash and burn. I could tell you a million things about all that, but that was just the catalyst. And they end up bringing roads in and building schools. And you just take some goats or some sows or rabbits in the beginning, it will change great lives because they take charge and they own it. It's their life. It's like building this country. We talk about that. Because we had land resources and we had the passion and the opportunity. And anyway, Beatrice was so excited, did so well. Then she had a scholarship offered to the Clinton School of Public Service. She ended up, and I'm mentioning Clintons, but I'm very bipartisan and so forth, and I can talk about Rockefellers and all kinds. But she interned for then Senator Clinton, and eventually with the foundation, the Clinton Foundation. I mean, they fell in love with her. And Jeffrey Sachs came when we dedicated the world headquarters, which, by the way, is a platinum LEED building. I was very proud to build that and set an example from the headquarters on about environmental considerations. So we could eat that building, and we may need to, I'm afraid, by 2030 or 2030, if we don't do some other things that we need to do. But she wanted badly to work for UN and intern one summer, and maybe it was even her capstone work. But at any rate, she said, "What I asked Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Sachs, Dr. Sachs, the author of, End to Poverty, everyone important has all these titles. It's so nice just to be a Jo Luck. It's simple. Of course, they all think I'm Chinese until they meet me, or Joy Luck. I do get that one a whole lot. We may start the Jo Luck Club, and if you want to be a part of that one. So anyway, but I asked if he would please write a letter of recommendation. He said, "Are you kidding?" He hired her. He wanted her, and then she stayed on and did some work with him and so forth. And I'd introduced them earlier. They signed each other's books, and I'd introduced Hillary Clinton to her earlier many years ago and said, "I'm introducing one leader to another," and even gave her my signed book from Hillary because Beatrice had earned it and I know would treasure it as much as I had. So she ended up, now she's working in New York. She's doing some work for Heifer and so forth. But that book, which was just an idea we had, let's tell a story, you don't even know, will it publish? Simon & Schuster took her all over the country. She is the most articulate, amazing young woman, about 27 now. And they had to go into second print. Now I'm going to go over time. And they had to go into second print because it was so popular. It was the #1 book on the New York listing for children's books. So she is greatly sought after, greatly loved, and a fine young woman, and it started with a goat. So just think about the possibilities and what happened with that. I was in Laos and walked into the village, and it seemed like everything was the color of dust and dirt, and the chief or the leader there was showing me around, and I said, "Now, how do you select the first families that receive the animals?" And he said, "Oh, well, of course, they have to complete their training," and he listed the normal things you would expect, and he said, "And they have to have num chai," and I said, "Oh, wait a minute, tell me about that." And the interpreters thought about it, and he said, "Well, translating num chai is literally living waters in the heart." And so I said, "I like that. You've got to have that compassion and that understanding to go with that good hard work and commitment." So from then on, I don't think the labor folks were excited about it, but part of my every interview was to rate them on num chai as well as many other things. And it's amazing what you do with that if you don't lose it. Never compromise your core values, and always keep your num chai. So then I want to wrap up with 2 more stories. This is so hard. I don't have that little time. And it's for you, not me. I've heard the story before. Okay, I wanted to tell you, I want to tell you quickly about the Maasai chief. Are there any Maasai chief people here? Okay, because I'm not insulting them. They're wonderful, strong people. But when they were running out of room to graze their cattle nomadically, as they do, we helped introduce the camels. We talked about a lot of other possibilities. And I didn't know you could milk a camel, and certainly they can go along with it. I mean, there are just so many advantages for transport and many other things. So I was visiting this village, and as I said, I am respectful. It would be ridiculous if I were not. And I was the guest, and I would interview the chief, and I would say, "Now, how much time do you spend feeding the animals?" "Oh, no, wife number 2 does that." And I said, "Okay, well, I understand. And so what about," and I'd go on other questions. "Oh, wife number 1, and I mean, the way it worked. And I said, "Oh, it would be so exciting if the women could go to the training." And he said, "Oh, not in our culture, it's the men." So, for 40 years, the men have been training, and the women were the backyard caregivers of the animals. Thought we need to work on that connection. And I said, well, it would be exciting if they could have that training and improve their expertise. And I've seen that in some other villages. And you know, the production went up. Oh, the liters of milk doubled. We'd start talking a little bit of economics with him. And he said, really? I said, well, you are the chief. If you want to set an example, just do a pilot test program. If it works, you know, you can really be the one that's bringing that to your entire tribal area. And if it doesn't work, you said, well, I tested it, you know, so we would know. So in about 3 or 4 weeks, I received word from him, his people, and they said, you know, we're thinking about trying that. And so they had some rules. The women had to be escorted to and from their training, I guess so they wouldn't misbehave like the men. They knew that perspective. And then also, they could only have one wife from a family at a time attend the training. And then they had to do handwork so that their time would be productive. Well, it was not long before it made such a difference economically. And the chief was proud, it was successful, everything went great, and he even brought me back and presented me with his spear. And for a man chief to give his spear to anyone, and particularly a female, is really almost unheard of. And I was deeply honored. I still have that spear. I got other people to bring it back on the plane. That was before 9/11, fortunately, or it would still be with him. And I wish he kind of hadn't told me about the lions he'd killed with it, but I had to put that in perspective, that was really the use originally on that thing. So quickly then I want to tell you one other experience, and I want to mention Terra. I did a survey. I always want to hear from the others, and I know you all do. I hear so much about that, and even the dean was telling me about this brilliant idea of listening and gathering information from others, and that's how we really, really look smart. And it's not us. It's listening and learning and putting it together. So I did a survey of about 200 people in 30 countries. It wasn't too long ago. It might have been 8 years now or so. And so I asked them, which I often do when I'm on campuses in certain workshops and things, to list the most important things in your life. Give me 10, if you can, most important things in your life, so I won't wander as much. I think I jotted down their survey results, although I know them too. And you would expect them to talk about having a roof over their head, having running water, having a means for their children to go to school, having health, of course, everyone wants that, food. Some said maybe they want to have glasses or teeth, or, you know, maybe they want a TV, I heard all kinds of students give me all kinds of answers. And anyway, what they said, and whether I have this on my notes or not, doesn't matter. They came up with the top 10 things. And it was family, it was income, I mean, they called it jobs, work. It was spirituality, it was community, it was education, it was health, it was vision and future and leadership. I mean, you know, I'm listening to these people and the things they're talking about. So think about how fortunate I've been to sit on the ground and discuss world issues with people that think like that and learn from them and speak about sitting on the ground. I was in Zimbabwe many years ago, about 12 or 13 now. And they kept introducing me to the men, which is fine. They're very important in their work and so forth. And I finally said, I would like to visit with the women in this village as well. And they said, okay. And they brought them together. Most of them had a toddler, maybe a baby on their back. I sat by one woman that was pregnant and had a baby wrapped around and on her back. And I asked the women, what are your dreams? And they said they didn't really know they could have dreams. And I said, of course you can have dreams. And we talked about it. And I said, in fact, write them down if you can, or remember them, or draw them on something, or whatever good works for you. And then think about them and believe in them, and you'd be amazed what will come true if you believe in it and work toward it. And so when I left, one woman named Tara said that to her mother, and that she'd really like to do that. And so the mother had kind of a tin box, I'm sure it came from the trash or something somewhere, and I thought maybe it was like a sardine thing or something, I don't know. And so she wrote down her 3 dreams, and she put them in that box, and when she was shepherding, she buried it under a rock. And she believed in them, and within 10 years, she had achieved all but one of them. And when we dedicated our world headquarters, and we had President Clinton, we had Governor Huckabee, we had a lot of, it's kind of, politics is interesting there. And we had all these different ones lined up on the stage, and we asked Tara, whom I didn't realize had been in the circle. I'd been working with her, because she had done some work with Heifer, and they'd ask her to tell the story of her journey for everyone there, and she did. And she talked about this woman that came, and they hadn't had anyone from the Americas and all that, and that she sat on the ground with them and ate what they were eating and all those things. And she said, told us we could have dreams, and she said, I went back to Zimbabwe, and I dug up my little tin thing, and I brought my list. And she said, I wanted to read it to you. My dream, because I wanted to be educated so much, and she said, was to go to America to get my bachelor's, to get my master's, and my doctorate. That's someone that had never been in a classroom. And she had achieved everything then except her doctorate, and she was working on it at Michigan in evaluation and monitoring. And she's been on fellowships and all kinds. She's Dr. Trent now. And, I won't tell you this, we've spoken together at Yale and New York University, all kinds of places where we work together and talk together. But I'll tell you this quickly, I've never had opportunity much to watch television, but I certainly know Oprah's power. Talk about fundraising. I was wanting to be a personal friend with her, but I never achieved that. But, I really liked her, and I thought she'd kind of like me, and we'd get along. But when she got ready to end those 25 years, the shows we're all familiar with. Of course, she didn't end. She went on to something greater, I suppose. But she said she was going to identify the most inspirational guests she'd had. And I thought, how could she do that? I mean, who didn't she have, I mean, what stories and what? And originally when she had Tara come on the story because she'd read in the New York Times one of her stories, and on and on and on. And I'm trying not to make it too long. And so she said she'd like for me to come, the woman who asked her, did she have a dream that encouraged her to take that step? And I said, sure, I'd be honored to come. So Oprah was interviewing her. It went well. It was exciting. And then at the end of her 25 years, which is about 5 or 6 more years, they contacted me, the producers, and said, we want to surprise Tara, and can you help us with this and that and so forth? And so Tara was the most inspirational gift of her 25 years. This woman from the village in Zimbabwe who had pulled her way up through true grit and hard work. And she gave her $1.5 million, I think, to build the schools in her village. Anyway, and they're building schools together, and they're doing things together. And you never know how you're changing someone or affecting someone sitting beside you, Do you have a dream, or do you have whatever? And she is the hero, but there's so many like that throughout the world. And whatever you do to make a difference, you're investing in people like that. I did jot something down that I wanted to share with you to wrap up my experience as I get the hook or something that's going to come up here and get me, I'm sure. But you can tell I'm very, free-spirited. I even numbered them, but I'm not paying much attention to that. I did that a while ago, and Dr. Rom gave me that nice little room to sit in there. Over the past 25 years, I have traveled to more than 65 countries. I have slept on dirt floors, gone without bathing for several days and nights. I prayed that none of those malaria-carrying mosquitoes would penetrate my bed netting. I have been shot at in Sarajevo, an alley, and the sniper alley there, and wearing the flak jacket, which I'll never forget how heavy that was. I missed being on a hijacked plane in Burma, which is now Myanmar, by a mere 10 minutes because their little cart broke down that we were trying to get to the airport in. And thank you for breaking down, cart, because that plane was hijacked. And then I have been searched at many military checkpoints throughout Africa, Asia, Latin America, and in Bosnia. And the men that I worked and traveled with loved to tease me because they'd say, oh, here's a checkpoint up ahead. And they'd say, this one's a strip search. I said, no, no strip. Yeah, Jo Luck, this is a strip. Oh, we'll have to shoot me. We're just not going to do that, and he was teasing. And I said, well, I think we may have to fire you. But anyway, you know, you got to keep that sense of humor going because it helps. And it helps cross-culture, and it helps in difficult situations with anybody. I was photographing an elephant in Tanzania that was charging toward us with the raised trunk and the flapping ears and so forth. And she got closer and closer, and within about 3 feet of the vehicle, and I kept saying to the driver and the Jumbo, Jumbo, Jumbo. I didn't speak enough Swahili to say very much. And I'm trying to get him going, and we had a stalled vehicle. And he finally just pulled away before she would have smashed into our vehicle because we were parked, we were stalled too close to her newborn calf. And they said, I was standing, they said, Jo Luck, what were you thinking during that whole time? And I thought, well, we're either going to be injured or she is, and I hope not. But boy, am I going to have heck of photos. And I do. I think they're worthy of National Geographic, frankly. But you know, you just have to go with your situation right there and what you're doing. So, and then the rest of that is, and I'm trying to, I wrote this down particularly. I want you to hear it. I have eaten, we did have lunch earlier, but not now. I have eaten snake, yak cheese, beetles, guinea pig, and fried goat's blood in the middle of the Peruvian desert in a hot place under a tin roof with the leader of the village and I being watched for hundreds of people crowding around the little windows that would have given us air, watching how I love the goat's blood. And I asked for something to drink to go with it, which would be nice. And I got a warm bottle of a big orange drink, which wasn't exactly what I had in mind. But I, you know, they were giving me their best. I was honored to have that. I was blessed to have that. And I said thank you with a smile for their hospitality because they were sharing their best. But all of these minor inconveniences and challenges and frightening moments perhaps fade away when I saw people's lives transformed from hunger and suffering to that dignity and their pride and they're taking charge of their lives and making a difference throughout their community. So you're so kind to listen to the stories, and we'll go forward together to work on the other great challenges. And I know with your skill and your dedication, you're going to do a lot. And I wish my generation and some others were leaving you a better situation, but I know you're going to be up to the task and make us superpower leader again. I don't think we're doing as well as we could and should, and I know you will take us back there so others will trust us, and so we'll listen to others and know we're not better. We're just in the same village together. So wherever you go, think long term, never compromise your core values, and keep your num chai. Thank you very much. Maggie, Jo, you want to come up? You want to come here?
I'm kind of short. All right. We're going to have questions now?
Question and answer session. And so I'm going to start off with my own question, and then it's open to the audience. So Amanda and Chris have microphones, and they'll be in both the aisles. If you'll just raise your hand high, I'll call on you, and please stand and state your name and major before you ask your question. So my first question is about women in agriculture. And it's a complex question. I've tried to incorporate a lot into it. But what is the importance of, can you explain the importance of mechanization and financial resources like loans and productive resources like land and water for women in agriculture while still respecting cultural differences?
Well, and I do think part of that, do you hear me? Okay, because I stepped away from, yeah. Just raise your hand if you don't. We've got the brilliant technicians that will fix that. But I do think it's important to have the community own those decisions, men and women, everyone working together. And you know, I sounded a little bit tricky maybe with the chief, but it's just making the point. They need to understand, you know, as the Chinese saying is, why you just hold up half the sky, the men hold up half the sky, why not? It's using all your people power. It's using all your talent. And once they begin to see the economic benefits And don't just say it's what's right. I mean, that is important, but come at it another way. And then they start seeing some of the success and possibilities. I feel like I'm whistling in that. But then the women need the technical training. They are usually the ones that haven't had that opportunity. And unfortunately, they don't inherit or own land in many societies. And I worked so many years in the areas of near Lake Victoria and all where the aid was just running rampant and men were dying and women were dying. And you know, when the men died, the women didn't own the land, and then it sometimes went to a brother or a cousin or whatever it might be. So they need that technical training, and they need to have the loans. And I know Grameen Bank and others are more famous for that, but we started doing those kind of programs as well on a small scale or partnering with those that do. And women, which are the majority of the smallholder farmers, they're not better than men. They bring a different aspect, so understand me on that. But their loan payback rate is tremendous. So then the banks want to invest in them. They don't feel it's a question or a risk. They found it was low risk. Probably loaning to me would be a higher risk, and they have competition who pays back and so on. So that is a critical issue and needs to be addressed. I'm telling stories, but policy and working with governments and recognition and research, I mean, it's going to take all of that to make the difference. But if you understand the heart of it and know how to work through that to get to the people, I think that's the hope or the success story.
Yeah, thank you. We actually have a question right here in the front.
Hi, Ms. Luck.
Hi.
My name is Emily Lehman. I'm a graduate student in poultry science, and I also studied abroad in Mozambique. So what advice would you have for someone like me?
When you go into, tell me just a little bit more. When you go into Mozambique, okay, to go into that. Well, I would suggest, and I'm not the expert in everything, so get lots of advice. But I would suggest that you not only read and study about the people, or if there are people here from that country or anything else to talk. And then where you do go, whether it's there or anywhere, go in slowly. You have your heart and your mind full of everything you want to do, and you want to help immediately, you're just so excited. But be gracious, listen to them, let it be clear you're their guest, whether you're the expert or whatever. Ask some questions. You're a female. I had a big advantage as a woman. Of course, I'm talking, 18, 19, 20 years ago when it was unheard of for the VIP to be a woman. The chief and his men didn't know how they were going to sleep and eat with me in the same room. They never had a female VIP, but that was the custom, so we did it, But just kind of understand and care. It won't take you long. That you're excited, you know them, you're with them. You don't have to feel the stress, the pressure, or the nerves, and be patient. If we do it carefully, a step at a time, that's what I call sustainability. They prepare for it, they own it, they monitor it, they evaluate it, they love it, it's theirs. It will go on and on for generations, of course, unless there's a tragedy or a war or something, and they still will have those skills and beliefs. And don't worry about you. I don't worry about your safety. It can be dangerous, but it can be dangerous. My gosh, walking across a couple of these roads over here, So, I think we just have to do our best and not be foolish, but go on and do our work. And when someone said, Jo Luck, why are you not frightened being shot at here in Sarajevo? And I said, well, it's not exactly like I would like to stroll around a little more, but, I'm doing what I love. And if I go here, I'll be blessed. So I hope that'll help you a little bit, because you'll have all the knowledge and the things you need. Just go in with, I'm here to learn from you.
Amanda, right here in the third row.
Dr. Luck, you mentioned two things, water in National Geographic. Are you familiar with the article, Harvest the Monsoon Rain?
I have not read it, but yes, I know, and I'm bad. I have some National Geographic books. That's kind of my Bible that comes, but I've picked out several, and I know I have not. Are you going to tell me that's one of the best things to read or to have read?
It's really good.
Yeah,
It's basically the idea of digging trenches.
Yes.
So when it rains real hard,
Yes.
all the water goes into the soil, prevents flooding, prevents droughts, increases food, stops erosion, and really does work. So
That's what we need to be doing. And even, I don't want to cut you off, but I know even in Rwanda, they were showing me what the Department of Agriculture was doing, was building places to store the water and so forth. And then I'd go to the villages where we didn't have the money to build those, but they would use a hut or a space they had and put like a tarp in there and rig the thing to come along from the roof and capture the rainwater and all kinds of things. And you're exactly right. We cannot afford to waste a drop. And that's powerful. I'll make a point of reading that and citing that and some quotes and things.
yeah, it's a very inexpensive, easy, very dramatic
Great.
solution to that problem. I live on a river south of here, and I've seen the damage that's being done because of letting water just run off. Even here on the university campus, there's water runoff rather than,
Need to address that. We need to do better and better. And then if you go to the Heifer International headquarters, I insisted that we do something about the water, that I knew that was going to be a bigger and bigger issue. And even in the parking lot where there's the gravel and things, it goes through, it's filtered, it goes into the holding pond, it's cycled over here. We have a 5-story cistern. The water is reused. It never loses or leaves the property. And I loved it because for a 90,000 square foot building, our water bill was $100 several months. And if that didn't make the executives notice. So you can find ways that are economical, but also a better use of using our resources. Okay.
Hi, my name is Grace Kerfassi, and I'm a social work major. I just had a question about if you've ever had to deal with or handle a situation where the male leader refused to give opportunity to the female leaders, or give the opportunity for the leaders to be females, and if so, how did you deal with those situations?
I never confronted anyone because I don't find that, and unless I see someone being unkind or beating or hurting someone, then I'm liable to go up and punch them, and then I'm liable to be in jail or something. But I mean, other than that, I try to use diplomacy and just good logical sense of how I can. That's why I mentioned if you teach first grade and things like that, you begin to learn how you're going to work that one into wanting to do it and so forth. And I use the example of the Maasai chief. I find also, when I presented in Japan, I had to be very careful because they were not yet really ready for a woman to come in and present to all these leaders, the men in agriculture. I mean, I don't mean they weren't ready, but they weren't going to be as open to it. So I had a veterinarian meet me that would be able to use all the lingo and things that they wanted to hear when I made ideas. And so I will also have someone local or someone they respect to verify what they've seen. As an example, there was a man from another country, but making some decisions about whether women should be a part of their training program. And he was here was actually being entertained at Little Rock, I think. And it was interesting because I was leaving the hotel, getting ready to go hear him lecture, and Vice President then Bush was there in the hotel, which was, I didn't know, he was here. That was exciting. I'm a celebrity lover. And then John Paul Hammerschmidt was with him. And he stopped me and he said, Jo Luck, come here, I want to tell you this. And I said, yes, sir. And I went over and he told me right there about a village they saw that had not received care from Heifer, and the one across the river, and the contrast in the distance where the women had been trained. And here we had this speaker, and so I just need to start carrying a little tape, would you please record that? So if you can don't try to do everything yourself or try to convince. Get those people who will influence them, talk money and sense and so forth, and see what you can do and share other examples. If they see it's a win-win or that they want to do it, it's no problem. They'll do it.
We have another question. Oh, right back there, Amanda, on the other side.
Well, I should ask you to run for president, but instead
You
I'll
know,
ask.
that's a great honor, but I think that whoever's going to do that, oh bless them.
Fun job.
Lord have mercy. Okay, then I just don't know. I think I'm going to bow down to anyone that will take that on for us because it's going to be critical.
Well, instead I'll ask, how do you feel about hydroponic indoor greenhouse production as something more feasible than ever for producing good
Oh,
food?
fantastic. Listen, heifer's heifer, and it also implies cattle, and we don't run, the Texas herds or anything like that. And like I said, they don't eat the cattle. And remember, it's a cow, maybe a goat, some chickens. It's a small half-hectare or something where it's all integrated, and it takes the seeds, the hydrogen, plant the trees that will put that in the soil. I ask them not to cut trees, but to plant trees for living trees, and in different places where they're growing the poppy and all. I said, we will work with you. We will help you if you will not do that. I worry about wildlife in Africa, so I'll go in and say, here's an alternative, because they're poaching because they need the money. Oh, they're a few scoundrels, but a lot of times they need the money to support their families. And here's an alternative. You give them the dignity. If you have a little bulldog and he keeps working on something, give him a sock over here to pull on while you take this one away. Don't just take something away. And I think that's a great alternative, and that's one reason I'm so excited about learning, studying the water systems and what kind of fish, the right species. And people used to say, oh, it's like teaching people to fish. Well, I'm not literally, but I'm teaching people to fish now, but more important, what are the correct species, and plant. And I talked a long time yesterday with Mike about the greenhouses, and I get so excited about that. And Pioneer gave me a tour of all theirs and the future of that. We talk about land not being more but less. We got to use that water properly. And I want to tell you, as sad as I am about the horror of the 370 flight that's missing from Malaysia, I'm horrified to think about all the trash that is building up in our ocean. When I was a little girl, I know you won't believe it, oh my gosh, people would roll down their window and throw out a gum wrapper or something on the road. And now we're going to have junk falling out of space on our head, and we're going to have ocean. We need to think long term in using those kind of resources, the greenhouse, the water facilities, the land in partnership and working together. They say in Kenya, and if you're from Kenya, you can correct the way I say this, but I think it's even their motto, but it's Harambe. Together we can do it. And that's exactly what it's going to take, and I think there's a great future in that area specifically, as well as conserving the water with innovative ways, and with what am I trying to say, where you water the crops. Give me the most basic word in the world. What do you put? Irrigation, it's a hard word. But the things that I see now that you can do with the different methods of the dripping and so forth, that will also improve that greatly, is exciting to see.
Hi, I'm from Kenya, and
Yes, sir.
you killed it.
Did I do all right?
Yeah, you did all right.
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
But for me, it wasn't a question. It was more of, I just want to thank you for, taking your time and being a global citizen, and, just trying to make the world a better place. It takes one person to care, to make a difference, and you've made a difference in a lot of people's lives, and I appreciate you.
You're very kind, but I really don't deserve I'm the fortunate one. I don't get the credit for that, but I learn from people like you, and I have some of the closest friends in the world in Kenya. And Alex Kururi, who's the country director, and when I went there and I learned he'd never been in a hot air balloon, to see the vastness of the Masai Mara and so forth, and it was his country, I asked him to float with me. And after he got over the panic of the first, and no one else on his staff would do it, but so we float together. I learn and I listen, and they teach me things, and then I try to share it with others, and particularly those that have the resources that can help people like you take charge and change things in your world, and students here that are dedicating themselves to that. So I've been blessed, and if I ever win the lottery, because I think you have to buy a ticket, but if I ever win or something like that, I know exactly what I'd like to do with all those great resources, and hope I could someday. Thank you for your kindness.
I'm Lauren Altamont. I'm a hospitality and restaurant management major, and after spending time in Asia and just doing research, I've seen the huge problem of sex trafficking and human trafficking just around the world. And I was wondering how, if Heifer International has been able to see prevention through what they've done and like what that looks like.
I think
So has Heifer International seen
Well,
this issue of sex trafficking?
okay, I don't want the sex trafficking. I didn't catch. I thought that's what you were saying, but I certainly didn't want to launch into that. Well, sex trafficking. We need to go up and down the roads here in America with some people that are involved in that. Just hit them in the head with a baseball bat. That is just. I've met these girls in places and talked to them, and the genitalia, you know, the mutilization and the things like that others are addressing. That's part of not understanding the respect and the importance of each other. And I'm not trying to change cultures. I respect cultures and history, and we need to learn more about it and appreciate it and recognize it. But they need to understand there's a reason for value and a reason not to do that. And these young women need an alternative. It's just like poachers. Instead of shooting them, let's give them an alternative, you know, instead of growing the poppy and selling it, let's see if they can have another way to make a living. I felt very strongly, I hope they're continuing it, but I definitely had Heifer work with prostitutes and young women that were prospects for that, trafficking as well and so forth. And you know, some prostitutes have women, I mean babies, if they didn't make the abortion, or they didn't have them kill them and so forth. And so I would give them, not me, we would work as a team to give them the skills they needed to be able to support their family and give them the dignity they needed. And unfortunately, during one of the administrations, the USAID program insisted that we would not give where government grants were involved from aid in our work in any form or fashion or amount. We could not work with prostitutes, and we had to label all the vehicles and structures with the sign, you know, we're from America and we're here to help you, and I understand the importance of that. But I only hire indigenous people. We bring people from everywhere else to enrich the trainings and the discussions and all. But I was on a committee then, appointed by that particular president, and I resigned, and I wrote a letter that thank you for the great opportunity. It was an honor, but I can't take grant money or serve in this manner when I think it's so critical to work with these people as well as others. And I would be happy to label things from this great country that I've been blessed to live in, but not if it becomes a target that those people might be killed because of some hate locally. So it's not their primary mission, but when you're trying to do something, you partner with those who do address that. So together you can do it better.
We have time for one more question.
My name is Lincoln Combs. I'm an American Studies major with an emphasis on Southern culture. When we talk about food insecurity, we tend to focus on Africa and Asia. But over 1 in 4 Arkansas children live in poverty. What can we do to improve food security here?
I see some things happening I've learned even since I've been here in Fayetteville and talked to some others, and I've been doing some things, encouraging things in the Delta and so forth. I am horrified of the statistics. I'm embarrassed sometimes to be from Arkansas when I see we have more hungry children or we do this or that, you know, the pregnant teenage girls or the obesity factors. But we don't need to be embarrassed. We need to stand up and do something about it. And there is enough food. We've got to figure out how to And I love from the pantry yesterday and the programs, the one that's recovery. I don't have all your names just right, but where you recover from the union and the food and make sure it's all, used properly and so forth, that we have to make that dignified if someone needs to go there and access that. And I love the little bag, wasn't obvious what the bag meant, and it's private and kind of out of the way. We have to let that be dignified and be sure it gets to those people. And I'm sorry to say, and I've been shocked for years when I sit among some of the most educated people of my own friends and neighbors and citizens here and other places in our country that will say to me, is there really poverty? I mean, is it laziness? Or is there, these brilliant people, they're judges, they're executives, they're whatever. And I want to say, you need to take time and just go visit one place, that's all I'm saying, so you can decide for yourself. People don't think it's there, and they think if they're in poverty, they're lazy. We have got to get rid of, there may be some that lazy. Good gosh, if you've been given something and told to do this and do that or whatever, and you never had a chance to tell what your goals and dreams were, maybe you said, well, I'll just take advantage of it. You can't give them food stamps and say, buy milk and not cigarettes. Don't ever drink a beer or have a TV. You can't afford it. I mean, they need a life too, and they're under horrible stress. So I think it's terribly important to do one thing. If you can do one thing to make a difference or to share something out there, we can make a major difference in just 2 or 3 years locally, and we must do that, not only for their sake and our sake. I'm embarrassed that that's happening in my neighborhood or my town or my state or whatever it is, and that I'm not actively doing something, and we should be. So let's focus on that. When I talk about those other places, I have to be honest with you. I've learned that audiences like that because it's something they're not always seeing or doing. But if we can't, we have no business having poverty in our back door and in this great country where there's so many resources. And I apologize for that in other countries. I said, we're learning a hard lesson. Don't do what we did. Don't make a mistake. Don't fall down that path. You don't want to do that. That's not your intention, and it will happen if you don't bring everyone along with you. Don't just build the big bridges and the high things and the state farms, and I'll bring everybody along so you have a sustainable development. And one thing, oh, well, I'm sorry. See, when you get to be around 72 or 3, you lose a thought. You say, it's because I know so much. But if I think of it, it's brilliant. In 10 seconds, I'll tell you. But otherwise, just know I had another thought on that, and you triggered it, and I appreciate that.
Well, I'm sad to say that we are out of time for questions and answers, but thank you to the audience for your participation and to Chris and Amanda for helping. And thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom and stories. It's been great.
Sharing my time. I'm having such a great time. I mean, I'm being treated like a queen. I'm called in the cart. I have great professors and doctors carrying my umbrella. And oh my God, So when I get home and have to do dishes and clean up, it's going to be a real letdown. But your hospitality is beautiful, but more important, your minds. I've said this before, but I want you all to know that my family, my passions. I mean, I've got great son and daughter and son-in-law and grandchildren. I mean, I just love them. But, and they have this passion too. We all get all excited about these great things together. But I really feel like that my dream time is in the rural village, sitting with them, however they're sitting and what they're eating and learning and knowing them, and being on a campus where people are rich with thoughts and interest and really thinking ahead. You just invigorate me. And I wish we could run a channel on public, or not public, it's wonderful, but on regular television or cable that just shows things like this. So I'm sorry about Duck Dynasty. I have been hunting, and I know a few other things, Housewives or whatever, all these things. But I wish they could see this and experience it because it's very exciting. So thank you for having me. It's a great honor. I was a little bit intimidated when I knew who else you'd invited. So you probably ran out the list this time, but lucky for me because I was really tickled to be here, and thank you for the privilege.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
A reception afterward, just right out in the hallway, and so you all are welcome to attend and interact and maybe even speak with Ms. Jo Luck yourselves. And I want to invite Dean Todd Shields to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you, Joe. Thank you.